the man who outlived every prediction ever made about him. They told him to prepare his goodbyes before the leaves changed color. They spoke in careful tones, already imagining the end. But the end never came. To understand why this story matters now, we need to return to a moment of certainty. A moment when numbers, charts, and confident voices believed they could define a human lifespan. Because today, we live surrounded by predictions again. Algorithms forecast our health. Statistics guess our futures. And yet, this man quietly proved how fragile those predictions can be. He was not famous. He did not chase longevity. He did not follow a grand philosophy of living forever. In fact, he accepted the verdict placed in front of him without protest. The doctors were precise. They gave timelines. They explained probabilities. They spoke as if the future had already been written. At first, his life continued exactly as expected. He slowed down. He simplified his days. He prepared for an ending he believed was near. Family visits became heavier. Conversations lingered longer than before. Every small moment felt borrowed. Then something subtle happened. Not a miracle, not a sudden recovery. Just time continuing to pass. Weeks turned into months. Months into years. Appointments became awkward. Predictions quietly expired. The certainty that once surrounded him began to dissolve. No one announced a shift. There was no dramatic reversal. But each passing birthday added quiet tension to the story. Every candle became a question no one could answer. How long can a person live beyond expectation? And what happens when the clock refuses to stop? This is not a story about defying death. It is a story about uncertainty, about the fragile authority of numbers, about a man who lived long enough to watch certainty fall apart. And this is only the beginning. The years that followed did not unfold like a victory lap. They unfolded quietly, almost awkwardly. Each season arrived without explanation, as if time itself had forgotten the script. Doctors stopped using firm language. Predictions became suggestions. Appointments turned into routine check-ins, not countdowns. What once felt urgent slowly became uncertain. At first, everyone assumed it was temporary, a statistical anomaly, a short delay before the inevitable correction. But the correction never arrived. His body aged, but not on schedule. Some days were slow. Some days were sharp. The expected decline refused to follow a straight line. Instead, it bent, then bent again. Friends began to disappear. People younger than him. People stronger than him. Each loss added another layer of confusion. He attended funerals no one expected him to attend. He listened to speeches that sounded like echoes from a future he had already passed. What made it more unsettling was how ordinary his life remained. No radical diet, no extreme discipline, no secret routine hidden behind closed doors. He woke up, he ate simply, he moved when he could, he rested when he needed to. However, the world around him could not ignore the contradiction. Medical records grew thicker, margins filled with handwritten notes. Charts stretched beyond their original design. There was no box left to check. Family members stopped asking how long. They started asking how. How does someone remain present when the timeline collapses? How do you live when the ending refuses to appear? Time, once a threat, became something else entirely. A companion, a quiet observer. Each passing year removed another layer of fear, because when predictions fail long enough, they lose their power. Yet beneath the calm, tension was building, because survival is not just about living longer. It is about outlasting expectations. And expectations were beginning to crack. No one said out loud, but everyone felt it. This was no longer coincidence. Something deeper was unfolding. The real conflict did not arrive with illness. It arrived with realization. He was no longer living past a prediction. He was living without one. Doctors avoided timelines altogether. They spoke in conditions, not conclusions. Words like likely and eventually replaced certainty. The future became an open sentence with no punctuation. That uncertainty changed everything. without an expected end. Every choice carried new weight. Should he plan? Should he save? Should he begin things meant for later years? There was no later, only now, repeating itself again and again. Emotionally, the strain was heavier than the body. He had already said his goodbyes once. He had already accepted an ending. To survive beyond that acceptance created a strange tension, relief mixed with quiet exhaustion, gratitude tangled with guilt. People looked at him differently, some with admiration, some with disbelief, some with fear, as if his presence challenged the order of things, as if simply standing there disrupted a system built on averages. He became a living contradiction, a reminder that human life does not always obey design, that survival can be stubborn, uncooperative, almost defiant. Meanwhile, time kept erasing reference points. Old habits faded. New routines formed slowly. He stopped marking years the way others did. Birthdays lost their meaning. What mattered was waking up without pain, walking without effort, remembering names. Yet the tension continued to rise, because living without an ending creates its own pressure. Every decline felt final. Every recovery felt temporary. Each quiet morning carried the question no one asked aloud. How many times can a person outlive certainty? And what does it cost to keep going when the story was supposed to end? The answer was approaching, not through drama, not through collapse, but through a moment of clarity that changed how everyone saw him. The moment did not arrive in a hospital room. It arrived in a living room on an ordinary afternoon. Sunlight crossed the floor. The world kept moving. Someone asked him a simple question. Do you still think about how long you have left? He paused, not because he was unsure, but because the question no longer made sense. He had outlived numbers, outlived estimates, outlived certainty itself. Time was no longer something waiting to be taken away. It was something happening moment by moment. That was the realization. Longevity is not just surviving longer. It is surviving past the story others wrote for you, past the expectations, past the fear created by prediction. His life did not become infinite. It became present, each day stripped of urgency, each moment freed from countdowns, not because death disappeared, but because fear lost its authority. Today, we live surrounded by forecasts, health scores, risk calculators, projected outcomes. They guide us, but they do not define us. This story is not proof of immortality. It is proof of uncertainty, of resilience, of how fragile our confidence can be when faced with real life. Because sometimes the most powerful act of survival is simply continuing, quietly, without permission. Subscribe to join the journey. The